And we did a great job in Texas, a great job in Florida, a great job in Louisiana. And it's the most difficult job because it's on the island. It's on an island in the middle of the ocean. It's out in the ocean. You can't just drive your trucks there from other states. And the governor said we are doing a great job.
President Trump defending his administration's response to the helping of people in Puerto Rico or lack thereof. Now, he's planning to visit next week, Tuesday, the expected arrival. His comments today, they are on the heels of this tweet sent after he sent about 20 tweets about the NFL, where he's pointing out the island's problems. Texas and Florida, he writes, are doing great, but Puerto Rico, which was already suffering from broken infrastructure and massive debt, is in deep trouble. Its old electrical grid, which was in terrible shape, was devastated. Much of the island was destroyed, with billions of dollars owed to Wall Street and the banks, which sadly must be dealt with. Food, water, and medical are top priorities and doing well. FEMA says it's ramping up its relief efforts. It says several hundred relief workers are already on the ground, and food, water, batteries, generators, and a lot more are being shipped in on an hourly basis. But they are fighting an uphill battle. Now, just about the entire island still without power, and that's more than 3 million people. There are reports of people fighting over last remaining food and water, and towns totally cut off. Airport severely damaged, and people are lining up to criticize just how that island is being treated. Congresswoman Nydia Velázquez of New York, one of them, she says, quote, Puerto Ricans are Americans. We cannot and will not turn our backs on them. And the governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, he too critical of the president, saying he ought to spend less time focusing on NFL players kneeling for an anthem and much more on disaster relief. Well, joining us now is Juan Agustin Marquez. He has family on the island. He's also a filmmaker who directed a documentary about Puerto Rico called The Last Colony. Juan, good to talk to you as always.
Hi, Richard.
You know, one point of clarity, I said it there, but I'm not sure, maybe obviously the New Yorkers know this, but we're talking about Americans here. Yes, they're in Puerto Rico, but 3.5 million Americans in every sense of the word are in Puerto Rico right now. And I think what people don't realize is if the situation keeps getting worse, you're going to have a huge exodus of those people coming to the United States, as you and I would as well, if no one's coming, basically, the cavalry to rescue them.
Well, that's right. Well, first of all, my family has been in San Sebastian, the western side of the island. It's been over a week since I've been able to talk to them. There's complete towns that are with no communication whatsoever. So the situation is as critical as you can imagine. This is, to Puerto Rico, this is like Katrina, this is like a September 11th, this is, everybody in the island is extremely stressed out, and everybody in the diaspora, as how we call ourselves, the Puerto Ricans that we have left, we are all extremely concerned about our parents, our family members, our friends. Everybody is in a very difficult situation. No water, no power. It's very hot and humid in the island. There's mosquitoes everywhere. There's people that need medicine that don't have access to their medicines. It's just the worst that you can imagine.
To that end, we referenced some of the president's comments. Some people thought they were late in coming, given all the attention on the NFL recently, but he pointed out, in effect, it was Puerto Rico's problems that they had an antiquated grid, et cetera. I've heard some people be critical that he didn't talk about Houston, for example, having antiquated systems to deal with flooding, et cetera. It seems that Puerto Rico is being treated differently than Florida or Texas or other places that were devastated, maybe because one's on the mainland and one isn't.
Well, it should be no surprise to Mr. Trump because he has a lot of properties and business in Puerto Rico. But there's no surprise to us that he and this Congress would treat us different. One of the main things that we have to address right now is that first, yes, we definitely need the president to focus on Puerto Rico and not be talking so much about the NFL. I completely agree with that, and Governor Cuomo. Second, there's things that we have to send to the island, and there's things that private citizens can do and entities that they can help. Comprometidos con Puerto Rico, Friends of Puerto Rico, there's a bunch of organizations that help out. And third, there's something that Congress could do is to get rid of the Jones Act, or known as also as the cabotage laws for Puerto Rico, and that will bring huge relief for the island. And instead of be talking about the NFL, we could be talking about giving Puerto Rico a year break from cabotage laws and allowing other ships that are not American flag-based ships to help Puerto Rico. Right now, Puerto Rico is in a very interesting colonial situation where only the United States can help Puerto Rico. Not even our neighbors can come to Puerto Rico to help. So we're completely dependent on a system that we have very little voice in.
In fact, we're putting up on our screen where people can go to help out Puerto Rico. A lot of the relief agencies that are being set up to do that, and you've humanized this with family there. But there's also concern that we could be moving. Puerto Rico is an island, obviously that complicates the efforts, but the Navy hasn't been put into basically full force as much as they could. There's been questions as to why, for example, the USS Abraham Lincoln, an aircraft carrier, hasn't been deployed there. Also, the USS Comfort, which is a Navy hospital ship with more than 1,000 beds, that also hasn't been placed. And when asked, the Navy said, we have to be ordered by the administration to do it. I know the folks at FEMA have been tasked with a lot in the last month. Yeah. But it doesn't seem that directives is this is much of an emergency, as certainly the people on the ground in Puerto Rico can attest that it is.
Well, we have to treat this as an absolute emergency. We have to send everybody to Puerto Rico to help right now. This is not the time to be playing political games and say, well, we haven't sent it because you haven't requested it. There's got to be some initiative taken by the federal government and stop playing around with things that I've read in the news, where with Mayor of San Juan, Carmen Yulín, saying, you know, there's some help that they haven't given to us because we haven't requested it, but we didn't know that help existed, and they never told us that it was available to us. So those are political games and word games that are completely unnecessary at this time, and it should be the time to be sending all the help in the world. Yes, the infrastructure in Puerto Rico was super weak. I've lived there my entire life. Power goes out every week. This is perhaps a blessing in disguise that perhaps we can refix our infrastructure from the ground up. But right now we need all the help we can give from the federal government.
Just as a reminder, not that it should matter necessarily what your citizenship is, but these are Americans we're talking about, and this isn't some third world country that, you know, whether it's an act of charity by the United States, this is what we owe to fellow Americans, and I think that sometimes has been lost, and we're talking 3.5 million of them. You compare that to U.S. states, there's a lot of states that don't have that population, so it's desperately needed, and we wish you the best, and also I wish your family the best as well, and I hope you get in contact with them shortly. The best of luck.
Appreciate that. Thank you, Richard.
All right, everyone, when we come back, we're going to take a look a little closer to home with some local headlines. Please stay with us.